Walked through these hard times and created these wonderful stories for us to focus on, learn from, to see how you reacted and acted among your people. And we can draw from that hope, we can draw from that encouragement, we can draw from that, know that we're not alone. The hardships we go through, sometimes they pale in comparison. So we thank you for that. And we look forward to meeting these brethren, sistren, in the future. So be with us as we open your word, and we look forward to what you have to teach us today. In the name of Yeshua. Amen. So this story that we're going to read today, Miketz, and I love this story. All these stories. And it's a long one, so we're going to kind of brush through some preliminaries. In college, you call it prerequisites. You had to have this class before you could understand this class. I remember diving right into advanced chemistry because I wanted to get through college faster. And I was supposed to have pre-chemistry and chemistry 1. I said, I can wing it. Oh man, that was hard. I got through it, but it would have been smarter to have the prerequisites for sure. So, trust and Miketz. So as we study this passage, I'll just give you a little backdrop of where we are coming from as we get to the story. So if you remember Joseph, the favored son of Jacob, because he was a child of his favored wife, Rachel, he had a dream. He had a couple of dreams. And he also was given the coat of many colors. Some say it was actually just a long sleeve coat, like something that the royals would wear, and others say it was actually moth-like colored. But the point was, he was distinguished among his brethren. He was selected as a favored child. And then we also see him then talking to his family, gathered around. He's sharing with them the things that Father put into his mind. And I want to, as we look at this story, I want to look at the trust factor that's woven all through here. Because it really stood out to me as I was reading it again for the second time. So I thought, well, let's talk about trust. And as I put on my trusting eyes, I began to see it popping up all through the story. And so it's really interesting to me because it starts right here. Joseph is sharing with his family, the people he should be able to trust. He's sharing with them the most intimate dreams that he's had. I mean, this is like, I'm not even sure if he knows what these mean for sure. Many people speculate that he was aware and therefore he was taking the opportunity to rub it into their faces. Others think that he just was fully unaware of what it was that the dreams were about. And he was sharing it with his family, hoping that they would unconditionally love him anyway. But we found out that they took offense to it, right? They found it to be threatening. So rather than being able to share his dream and vision with his family and be accepted, he was in fact rejected. And they were very jealous, and they removed the coat of many colors, and they tossed him into the well, and it was the beginning of a downturn in his life. We're going to see in Joseph's life several downturns, and then it's kind of up and down in his life for some time as the Father's dealing with him and teaching all of us. So down he goes, and then he's sold to some Ishmaelites, and he's taken in, and he's placed in Potiphar's house. And there he's just brought in as a slave, and he's told to do slave things. But he doesn't really, and I challenge you to think about this, I'm not sure he sees himself as a slave. He sees himself as a child of Jacob. That's who he sees himself. He sees himself as a child of the one who is given a promise. He sees himself as part of fulfilling that promise, even though he doesn't see it now. So he carries himself differently, and therefore he just performs, and he's being blessed. So he instead of, you could say he's always going the extra mile, if you will. We don't have any examples that are given to us why he was chosen to be responsible, but other than everything he touched basically turned to gold. So Potiphar says, hey, you can just run the whole house. Everything in my house you can have, you can deal with. I trust you. Honestly, wouldn't that be kind of nice? It'd be kind of nice to have somebody that was in your household working for free. All you had to do is feed them. And they can manage everything and manage it perfectly, and they're managing it your style to bring future profits to you and your family. So then Potiphar's wife says, hey, you didn't, how do you say this? She flirted with him, let's put it that way. He says, hey, he's given me everything, but he's not given me you, and I'm not going to take advantage of that. I'm not going to take advantage of my position. And so she was a woman scorned, and so she called for help and basically turned him in and falsely accused him at this point. Let's be aware, he was falsely accused, and then he was then imprisoned for a crime that he did not commit. I can attest that in watching children, my children and now my grandchildren, none of the children enjoy being corrected or being called out on anything, but anytime that you accuse them of something that they did not do, that they're innocent of, because their brother did it or something, oh my goodness, they will let you know. They will let you know, because none of us want to be accused of something we have not done. While he's there, the baker and the butler have dreams, and they're sent down there, and he basically interprets their dreams for them. They both come true, as was told, and he whispers into the ear of the butler and says, you're going to be returned and restored in your role. Remember me before Pharaoh. Well, he did. And that's where the story begins with what David says at the end of 2 years. Because he basically, even after doing all of this and doing his best to maybe position himself to be removed from the prison, there he sits for 2 years and he turns into an old man. At least it felt that way. Lo and behold, while that's happening, Pharaoh now is having a dream, a couple of dreams. And it's at this moment that the butler says, hey, I remember somebody. I remember my fault. I remember somebody in prison that can interpret dreams. And that's where we're going to pick up today. What we're going to do is read some highlights. We're going to read some highlights in the scripture, some things that stood out to me before we get to the end. Again, the focus being on trust, as we go through this.
Then Pharaoh sent and called Joseph, and they brought him quickly out of the dungeon, and he shaved, changed his clothing, and came to Pharaoh. And Pharaoh said to Joseph, I have had a dream, and there is no one who can interpret it. But I have heard it said of you that you can understand a dream to interpret it.
Now, I just want to point out that Joseph had shared his dreams, and they weren't received. In our own lives, we're probably pretty selective who we share our dreams with. And I don't mean just the dreams that we dream at night, but our dreams for our future, the dreams that we want to accomplish in life. Maybe our dream mate someday, all the features of our dream mate, or maybe our dream job, or maybe what we want to do in retirement, or maybe how we would like the Father to use us. We're kind of cautious about who we share that with because that's very personal. So I want to point out here that if Pharaoh is going to share this dream and vision with Joseph, that's a certain amount of trust that he's already putting out there. Because he's sharing something with someone that's not even of his land, someone who is in the prison, and he's just going by, he's now putting some trust in the butler's recommendation. But he also knows that this is important. This is important. I need to understand this dream at any cost. At any cost.
So the advice was good in the eyes of Pharaoh and in the eyes of all of his servants. And Pharaoh said to his servants, can we find such a one as this, a man in whom is the Spirit of God? Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, inasmuch as God has shown you all this, there is no one as discerning and wise as you. You shall be over my house, and all my people shall be ruled according to your word. Only in regard to the throne will I be greater than you. And Pharaoh said to Joseph, see, I have set you over all the land of Egypt.
Okay, so we know the progression, and we've studied this before, but basically Pharaoh has the two dreams interpreted by Joseph, and Joseph then says, hey, here's what's going to happen about the 7 years of plenty, 7 years of hardship, 7 years of drought. You should also consider doing this, taxing the people 20%, the crops out of the plenty. And you think about that, and what king is going to say, no, that's a bad idea to raise taxes? But no, he did agree with him. But we also see the progression of Joseph, that Joseph he is done with himself. He's come to the Miketz of himself. He's now saying, this isn't me. Matter of fact, the Lord's going to show us the interpretation of dreams, but he's going to show you, Pharaoh. He's going to show you, which I thought was interesting because he showed it to Joseph. But he was giving Pharaoh and Yahweh the credit, which is, I thought, this is really interesting. This young man is growing up. He is learning. And my goodness, he was just pulled out. Who knows what he was doing just moments ago, and now he's in the king's presence, Pharaoh's presence, and he was able to reel off this answer. And that was definitely, just like Pharaoh said, the wisdom of Yahweh placed within him. So now Pharaoh is showing trust not only in Joseph, but in what he would consider the gods. He would consider the gods. I don't know if he's putting credit in Joseph's God or if he's putting credit in the gods he worships. I'm not sure. But the point is that he's actually putting Joseph in charge. And he's like backing off like the queen in England, just kind of a monarch, kind of for events and various things. But Joseph's going to be the one doing the work. He's going to be the one doing the work. And he's going to be the one that is calling the shots. Now we see Pharaoh also saying, not only am I trusting him, but everyone else needs to trust him. He's going to make sure everyone obeys him. And then the next passage talks about the ring. I'll read this. Then Pharaoh took his signet ring off his hand and put it on Joseph's hand. That's the ring of authority. And he clothed him in garments of fine linen and put a gold chain around his neck. And he had him ride in a second chariot, which he had. And they cried out before him, bow the knee. So he set him over the land of Egypt. Pharaoh also said to Joseph, I am Pharaoh, and without your consent no man may lift his hand or foot in all the land of Egypt. So we see here that Joseph is being paraded around, and he's letting all the land know that this man is now in charge. He's going to write us through the next 14 years. What he says goes. And it's interesting to note here that they're told to bow to him, which is, I just find that ironic. It's his way of commanding respect that in Egypt. You shall respect this man and his wishes. So there's a measure of trust there as well.
What I've always found with this story is interesting that in verse 28, it says that Elohim showed Pharaoh what he was about to do. Sometimes we don't always think that ungodly men hear from Yahweh. I've just always found that interesting. That, he speaks to all of us, but are we listening?
Interesting. Good. Well, you got the microphone, it'll go this way. So go ahead and read this.
Oh, you're going to make me read now?
Yeah, I'm going to make you read. I'm skipping ahead quite a bit here. The drought's beginning, and Joseph's family is being affected.
So Joseph's 10 brothers went down to buy grain in Egypt, but Jacob did not send Joseph's brother Benjamin with his brothers, for he said, lest some calamity befall him. And the sons of Israel went to buy grain among those who journeyed, for the famine was in the land of Canaan.
Okay, so we can begin to speculate why Benjamin wasn't sent. It may have been a lack of trust in the brothers to protect and oversee. For Joseph just simply was no more, right? He may be questioning and not trusting his own judgment. He may have been faulting himself all these years. I shouldn't have sent that young man without a servant or another witness to guard him. He may have lost faith in Yahweh to protect him. He's already lost Rachel. Now Joseph, I don't trust Yahweh. I'm not saying what he said. These are just thoughts that might have gone through his mind. A lack of trust at this point. We're going to see where this leads. It's interesting.
But Joseph said to them, it is as I spoke to you, saying, you are spies. In this manner you shall be tested. By the life of Pharaoh you shall not leave this place unless your youngest brother comes here.
So they go in and they present themselves before, they just go to Egypt to buy some grain. But they ended up getting presented before Joseph, and he starts to question them, and he can hear them talking in their language, in Hebrew, and here's what they're saying, and he's trying to figure out a plan. And he's wondering, he hasn't had any communication with his brothers in all this time, or his father. He doesn't know who's still alive, who is gone. And he doesn't know their hearts. So he wants to begin to test them. I find this very interesting. So he comes up with a plan, and he says, you're going to leave your youngest brother, you're going to bring your younger brother here. Now what are some thoughts you might have about why he wanted his younger brother to come?
The last son of Rachel, he doesn't trust them that they might not have hurt Benjamin as well.
He may be already disposed of as well. Let's remember, here, I think I put some notes on here. These are some of my thoughts. Joseph wanted proof that all the favored sons of the favored wife had not been betrayed or abused or even killed, as Joseph and Benjamin were the sons of the favored wife. Perhaps that is why he too asked about his father. What if the father was also killed? It's a possibility. I mean, look at this. Right after Rachel died, Reuben slept with Bilhah, Rachel's handmaid, who is the mother of Dan and Naphtali. Was this an attempt to replace Jacob? There seems to be a lot of tribal problems here about who's going to be number one, who's going to be in charge. I don't know what Reuben's motivation was. I have no idea. But Joseph is wondering, and he's wondered all these years, what's to become of my father? What's to become of my brother? And then he began to wonder, probably, how did mom die anyway? We get NCIS to investigate that. So he wants to see his younger brother as evidence that they didn't take out more wrath on him. Okay. And he probably missed him. There's that too. Then they said one to another, we are truly guilty concerning our brother. And this is they're saying in Hebrew, and he can hear them, because he was talking to them through an interpreter prior to that. We are truly guilty concerning our brother, for we saw the anguish of his soul when he pleaded with us, and we could not hear. Now, the book of Jasher describes in great detail. This is the first time we hear about Joseph crying. The book of Jasher talks about him crying so loudly that they were trying to quiet him, the Ishmaelites. He cried like all the way to Egypt. But the point is, it does say here that he did. He cried to us, and we would not hear. Therefore, this distress has come upon us. And Reuben answered them, saying, did I not speak to you, saying, do not sin against the boy, and you would not listen? Therefore, behold, his blood is now required of us. But they did not know it. Joseph understood them, for he spoke to them through an interpreter. Okay, so Joseph's starting to get the picture here that maybe they have a repentant heart. Maybe there'll be some, because let's think about it. They completely violated their trust with him. He trusted them. They're older brothers. They're supposed to watch out for him. They totally violated that trust. It's not easy to win trust back. It's not easy. So he began to probe and prod to figure out if they can be trusted. It goes on. So he goes home. The sons go home. And you know the story. They put the money back in their sacks. They went home and told their dad about it. They're honest about that. They told their dad about, hey, the money got put back in our sacks. He says, well, take that money back and take some more money to buy more grain. And we will win favor. And they said, but we can't go, Dad, unless we take Joseph. He says, you're not taking Joseph. Then Reuben spoke to his father, saying, kill my 2 sons if I do not bring them back. And he said, my son shall not go down with you, for his brother is dead, and he is left alone. If any calamity should befall him along the way in which you go, then you would bring down my gray hair with sorrow to the grave. So they didn't go. They stayed there. And all this time, one brother is still there. Which one is it? Simeon. Simeon is still there. So I don't know how much grain they brought. They brought it in bags, right? So when that grain ran out, Simeon was there that whole time. So finally, this grain runs out too. Then Judah said to Israel his father, send the lad with me, and we will arise and go, that we may live and not die, both we and you and also our little ones. I myself will be surety for him. So now Judah's saying, I don't know if he's got sons too, but he's taking it up a notch. First it was kill my 2 sons, now it's like, what grandfather's going to do that, right? I will be surety for him. That's what Joseph says, or Judah says. And no, Joseph's not aware of these things at this time. But this is some happenings that's going on in the background. In fact, do not bring this boy back. So they're trying to build trust with their father too. Now, I'm not sure what all happened, but they realize that this is a big deal. Benjamin is very, very important to Jacob. And they know why. And they've had a hard time accepting it all these years.
I always thought it was interesting that it wasn't about blood necessarily to Jacob. You know, it wasn't about killing 2 sons for his 1 son. It wasn't about, like, well, I get even.
Right.
It's about, this is my son.
Yeah. Well, the blessings hadn't been done yet, but clearly that's what they were thinking. With what had happened already with their sister,
Sounds like there was some trust in the, even with the sons of who Jacob trusted more.
Yes. And I'm not sure, even these brothers, because some of them are a little bit crooked, like, I'm not sure I can trust you. Trust one another. Trust is definitely an issue. Trust is an issue.
And they answered, your servant our father is in good health. He is still alive. And they bowed their heads down and prostrated themselves. And they sat before him, the firstborn according to his birthright, and the youngest according to his youth. And the men looked in astonishment at one another. Then he took serving to them from before him, but Benjamin's serving was 5 times as much as any of theirs. So they drank and were merry with him.
Okay, so once they come back to Egypt, he inquires again, is your father well? Is he still alive? And they're showing respect to the office. And then he seats them. Why do you think that he seated them according to their birth order? He's toying with them. And he's going to build up something, because soon he's going to talk about the seer's cup or the diviner's cup, right? So this is his way of like building it up, like, hey, I can divine how you were born. But he's got insider information. So then he sends them out, and you know the story. They get out, and he tells his servant to put my cup, my divine cup, whatever cup that was, his special cup. I have a special cup at home too. I just broke it, so not only had to get me a new special cup, and she picked one out, a special coffee cup. I said, I don't want that one. I want one with a really wide rim so I can put more whipped cream in it. So I got a swimming pool for a cup now. It's awesome. He put that in the bag, and they sent him out, and he put it in Benjamin's bag. And then he sends out the troops, and they said, none of us took it. Now, why in the world did they say this? Whoever's guilty, surely they'll pay the price, if not die. Because they already know somebody got into the bags, right, before. So how could they just be so sure that nobody got into our bags? Well, so then they find it in Benjamin's bag. So Benjamin now is hauled back to Egypt. But the brothers go along as well. And I thought, this is the change. This is the evidence of the change now. They go back to Egypt as well, and they begin to plead the case concerning Benjamin. So Joseph says to him, hey, only the one who stole it needs stay. And I thought this was interesting. Benjamin was innocent of placing the diviner's cup in his sack. He didn't do it. He was innocent of that charge. Joseph was just as innocent of placing the divine dreams in his mind. He didn't put them there. Yahweh did. And so he's pitting 2 examples. Now this is what the remaining favored son. He's innocent of something, but being charged. What will the brothers do? Maybe they're not even sure. Maybe they think he did put that in there. They could have. If they really disliked him, and if they thought he was trying to be a favorite, they might have thought, hey, he's trying to be Pharaoh over Dad, or something to that nature. So the best thing we can do now is actually read Judah's response. So Judah actually entreats Pharaoh at this point, or Joseph. He entreats Joseph, and he takes a risk in doing that. He approaches him, and I guess through an interpreter, he's talking with him. And what he has to say, his wording here is pivotal in this story. And it reveals, he's speaking for all the brothers, it reveals their heart. And it is the point in which Joseph says, you have changed. You have changed. Actions, yes, they came back. But now, when they are unwilling to leave Benjamin there and return to their father as is, they could have come up with another story, right? Couldn't they have come up with another story? They could have said, hey, well, can I have his cloak before he goes? We got to put some little blood on that. The wolf that got the first son is still hungry. But they saw the effect. They saw the effect of their sin on their father. And they endured that for years. And that was just as hard, well, I won't say just as hard, but it was very hard undone as well.
Then Judah came near to him and said, O my Lord, please let your servant speak a word in my Lord's hearing, and do not let your anger burn against your servant. For you are even like Pharaoh. My Lord asked his servants, saying, Have you a father or a brother? And we said to my Lord, We have a father, an old man, and a child of his old age, who is young. His brother is dead, and he alone is left of his mother's children, and his father loves him. Then you said to your servants, Bring him down to me, that I may set my eyes on him. And we said to my Lord, The lad cannot leave his father, for if he should leave his father would die. But you said to your servants, Unless your youngest brother comes down with you, you shall see my face no more.
So it was when we went up to your servant my father, that we told him the words of my Lord. And our father said, Go back and buy us a little food. But we said, We cannot go down. If your youngest brother is not with us, if our youngest brother is not with us, for we may not see the man's face unless our youngest brother is with us. Then your servant my father said to us, You know that my wife bore me 2 sons, and the one went down from me, and I said, Surely he is torn to pieces, and I have not seen him since. But if you take this one also from me, and calamity befalls him, you shall bring down my gray hair with sorrow to the grave.
Yeah. So Judah's reciting the story just as it happened.
Now therefore, when I come to your servant my father, and the lad is not with us, since his life is bound up in the lad's life, it will happen, when he sees that the lad is not with us, that he will die. So your servants will bring down the gray hair of your servant our father with sorrow to the grave. For your servant became surety for the lad to my father, saying, If I do not bring him back to you, then I shall bear the blame before my father forever. Now therefore, please, let your servant remain instead of the lad as a slave to my lord, and let the lad go up with his brother. For how shall I go up to my father if the lad is not with me, lest perhaps I see the evil that would come upon my father?
Okay. So you see here, now he's offering himself as a replacement. And again, it's about trust that was broken and it's trying to be restored with his brothers. For Joseph, who he doesn't remember, or he doesn't see any longer. Of course, he's right in front of him, he doesn't realize it. For his dad, he's realizing that he's got a broken trust with his father, and he will not disappoint him again. He will die before he disappoints his father again. So he's rebuilding that trust. All right, so I said this story is about trust, so we're going to look at some definitions of trust in the scripture. I found 3. The Hebrew one is kasah, and it means to seek refuge or protection. To confide in, to put our hope in. So to trust in Father's protection, that means that we're going to be under his guidance, under his care, that our guidance, our care is not good enough. We actually need his. We talked about that, about the being in the fire, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Their protection was gone. It was Father's protection that kept them safe. Matter of fact, that same protection that sheltered them destroyed the people who threw them in. I thought that was very interesting. And that's the same thing with the Red Sea, the parting of the Red Sea. It provided salvation for the believers that trusted in him, and the ones that trusted in their might and their mettle and in their strength, it brought destruction. So to put our trust in the Father. And I like this too. It says to confide in. I think that's important to recognize that. Trust is also where it's a discourse. You talk back and forth to get to know one another. But in the Greek, it's also a puzzle to wait for salvation with joy and full confidence. And that's what we're more familiar with, perhaps, is to put our faith in the name of the Father, put our faith in Yeshua for our salvation. But truly, our salvation is yet to come. And then the other Greek word was patho, and it means to persuade or to be persuaded. I thought that was interesting. And that goes with to confide in that dialoguing. To persuade or to be persuaded. All right, so let's talk then. What do we do? Because this is going to happen to all of us. And if you're living and breathing in here, then either you have or you will disappoint someone. You're going to break a trust with somebody. I know I have more than once. So, and it bothers me like it did his brothers. And I try to make sure I don't do that again. So to find out what trust, or find ways to regain trust that was lost, let's first talk about what we shouldn't do. Don't give up. I would say number one, don't give up. If we violated a trust of someone and they're in a spot where we've promised to do something, I'll give you a quick example. I was supposed to have coffee with my mom and dad yesterday morning. I told them I'd be there. But it's also a vacation day. I took the day off of work, and I was actually studying. And when I have coffee with my parents once a week on preparation day morning before I go to work. I'm in the habit of doing that. And so when I'm on vacation, my structure is all changed around, and I forget every time. Every stinking time. And so I thought, this time I won't forget, so therefore I'll keep it on, because I usually cancel it if I'm... And sure enough, it was 8:30, and I'm supposed to have coffee at 6. And I go, oh, I did it again. So I called them, and I apologized and said, I'm sorry, I was studying. And I just don't have it together well enough to remember to come down there when it's a vacation day. They said, you on vacation? I said, yeah, I was on vacation. I was studying, and that's poor excuse, but sorry. So
I told you 2 weeks ago you needed a cell phone, so you could put that in there and it would remind you.
They could have called. My phone is right there. But it's not their fault. It's my fault.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, you mean you pop up and
If
it vibrate in my pocket or something? Like, you need to have coffee?
Yeah, it would remind you. We put everything in the cell phone and it reminds us. I tried to tell you that 2 weeks ago. You needed a cell phone.
Has that solved all your problems, Mike?
No.
Okay. Well, okay.
Sometimes I forget.
No, you're done. You're done. No. Don't give up. Don't give up. If we violate a trust, don't give up. Sometimes it takes time. In this case, how many years have passed? A lot of years have passed before the trust was rebuilt. It might take some time. Don't focus on excuses like I just did. But I'm just like, well, that's what leads to that, but still, I simply had to apologize and say, no, I messed up, folks. Because they get up early, and they come down there, and they have the coffee ready, and they usually get me a donut, and I'm sure they ate my donut and drank my coffee, but it's still not quite the same. Don't shift blame. Okay, so, well, it was because of this or because of this person, or maybe it's your fault. Why didn't you call me? Don't shift blame. We can do that. We're creatures that do not like to be under the microscope. It's very easy to do. And the last one on the what nots to do, don't point out flaws in others. So we had, I'm just going to use a first name here. We had a gentleman that we were ministering to years and years ago, early in our marriage. I think I was in my 20s, okay? And we're ministering to this family, and he would come and he would spend time with us. We'd do Bible studies and stuff, but then on occasion he'd show up and he'd be drunk. And it's like, we're not going to entertain you when you're drunk. You're not allowed to come here when you're drunk. So the last time he did that, he came and he says, well, what's wrong with me? I haven't killed anybody. And so then he went outside and he walked out in the street and got hit by a car. On purpose to make a point. He jumped just right so he wouldn't get terribly injured, but the police came and the ambulance came and all the way. And it was like, he wanted us to feel bad because we didn't let him stay at the house. And I got children there, and then he's drunk. I said, sorry, I'm not even going to feel bad about that. You want to jump in front of the car, that's your problem. I can be a hard nose if I have to be. But my wife began to use that on me. She said, because I did some of this, I started to do some shift blaming. It's really not that bad, whatever happened. And she said, oh, it's like you didn't kill somebody, huh? And it took me right back to Kevin. And I go, oh, man, I can't use that. But that's a good point. We shouldn't compare ourselves to, there's always going to be somebody that's doing something worse than we are. But there's always going to be somebody that's doing something better than us, too. And you notice that we don't compare ourselves to them, right? At least I don't. So I was like, well, I guess I should just compare myself to what I'm capable of, like what Ben was sharing at the beginning about, this is what I could be doing, or this is what the ideal is of what I'm also capable of, and where am I actually at in that process. I need to not point out flaws in others, but I need to look at my own life. So what can we do? Here's some things we can do to regain trust. And I think we can draw this from the story. Publicly admit error. If we screwed up, if we have screwed up, and if we've lost trust, then we've also lost the ability to keep it confidential. It's a sin, and we've kind of lost the title of an honorary. We have screwed up. And if we really want to regain that trust, then we need to not worry if other people know about it. We need to not let that be an issue. If you really want to regain trust, if you really are focused on maintaining the secrecy of all this, then you're not really trying to regain trust. I just want to put that out there right now. If you really want to regain trust, then you don't care about what others think about you. Yes, I screwed up. Maybe we can all be benefited by that. The scripture is full of stories of people that have screwed up. These brothers screwed up. And they're willing to admit to their error to Joseph himself. Then consider what your errors cost others. And this will lead us somewhere. But consider what your mistake has cost somebody else. And I think this is where the brothers are at. They're saying, I didn't know what it was going to cost Dad, but I've seen it, and I will not do that again. And what is more, I assume they have begun to apply that to others as well. So when we make a mistake, when we have screwed up, and we will screw up, we have to consider not just what it cost me, what did it cost somebody else? And you have to identify with them. I did this one time as well. Yeah, this is fun. You get to be up front so you can tell everybody how you screwed up, right? So, well, I'm going to be an open book for you guys. When we built our house, there was, it's a long story, so how can I sum this up? There was somebody that we ended up owing some money with. It was for a project that we wanted to do, and he started it, and then we just ran out of money, and so we can't finish it. But I didn't pay him for what he was owed yet. We kind of all thought, well, we'd finish it someday, and we'll just settle up at that point. And I finally decided, I think we came around to Yom Kippur one year, and it hit me. It's like, brother's got something against me. I need to take care of this. So I contacted this person, and we were living tight back then. And I contacted him and I said, in a letter, and I said, you know, brother, I owed him $1,000. I said, I owe you money for the work that you did, and you still have materials in your house. And I said, I can only imagine how rough it's been for you, because who knows how angry you've been with me, who knows what tools you might have bought, who knows how you feel about this whole matter, and I put you in that spot, and I'm sorry. I'm asking you to forgive me, and here's $20, and I'm going to pay you $20 until, because that's all I could afford, until this is paid. So I did that, and I was diligent to do that. It took, I don't know, about a year or so until it was finally paid. And he contacted me at the end of that and he said, brother, I want you to know, your letter really touched me. And I want you to know, too, that I had written this up as a loss, a business loss. So the money you sent me ended up being just like a bonus. So it was fine. And we've been good friends ever since. We knew each other prior to that. But I admitted my error, and I also told him, I can only imagine how this made you feel. Because we were friends before that, and I didn't want this to stand between us. So when you can voice to somebody else, try to see it from their point of view, that helps them to realize you are serious about this. You have thought this through. And yes, that is how I feel. And then to accept responsibility. As these men did, they did accept responsibility for their actions, and they're willing to, well, we'll talk more about that, but they did accept responsibility. Here's an example of this. A couple of months ago, they've kind of changed their tune right now, but with the attacks in Israel, of all places, Germany, the chancellor there said, at this moment, there's only one place for Germany, this place at Israel's side, the place at Israel's side. He told lawmakers, our own history, our responsibility, arising from the Holocaust, makes it a perpetual task for us to stand up for the security of the state of Israel. What did he do in this statement? It aligns with some of the things we've just been talking about.
He admitted fault from previous generations.
He admitted fault. Yes, he did. Didn't try to hide it, did he? He mentioned it by name, Holocaust. He said he's willing to take responsibility. And therefore, their actions are going to always be changed, right? Our actions will always be changed. We're coming to that. I already know that they sought forgiveness with Israel. They met with the chief rabbis, and the leaders of the Congress have met and talked about all of this, and I appreciate that. But once we accept responsibility, see, we can't really seek forgiveness until we have admitted our error, until we've really considered the cost for our mistakes, and accept responsibility. And then we can seek forgiveness. Is this not the message of salvation? That we realize what perfection is, we realize what holiness is, and we realize, wow, we have sinned and fallen short. What did it cost you, Father? It cost him the life of his son. Accept responsibility for our actions. We can all say, well, I was born into a sinful family. I was born and I had the short end of the stick. I had bad circumstances in my life. Yeah, you have. And people have had it worse than I have. But what an opportunity. Joseph is an example of somebody who was dealt a bad hand. He went through highs and lows, and it was his character every time that brought him up. Yahweh working through his character. And he did not give up, and he worked at it to be the best Joseph that he could be. Maybe to honor his father, maybe just because that's how he was trained, but I think it was a part of him. It was nothing he was faking. It was who he really was. Cut down to the core of it, it was exposed, and it was real in his life. So when those opportunities came up, I'll call them opportunities, to cast blame on others. Oh, my brothers dealt me a bad hand. I'm done. I'll tell you what, you watch his football games. Again, I haven't watched football in a couple of years. I I'm sidelining that for now until the Father tells me I should watch it again. I don't know if he will. But the point is, I have seen this in basketball, I've seen this in baseball, I've seen this in football. If there's a bad call, that affects the game, near the end, the team that it happened to, they give up. They give up. You can call it right now. They're not going to win because their winning spirit has been cut out from under them. And they can't overcome it. It's a rare team that can overcome that and say, we can still do this. But as soon as we feel there's something slighted us, something that went wrong, we give ourselves excuse to give up. Joseph did, that's our example. How wonderful it would be if when bad things happen to us, we can still overcome them and say, I'm going to make the most of this that I possibly can. Great things can happen. So anyways, after you've accepted responsibility to seek forgiveness with that individual, will they forgive you? It's not guaranteed. That doesn't mean you shouldn't ask. And it also means you do not get angry with them if they don't. That's on them. That's between them and their Father. Your job is to ask, seek. Then offer restitution. Offer restitution. What can I do to make this right? I mean, sometimes you can't make it fully right. The courts are full of examples of trying to make it right. It's about restitution in some ways. Offer restitution to make it right. Offer a plan to not repeat the error. Again, I'm talking about someone who truly wants to regain trust. If you don't want to regain trust, you're going to try to keep this quiet. You're not going to try to actually solve the problem. You don't want anybody else to know about this. You expect them to forgive you, and you don't offer any restitution. You simply want to have a repeat. I'm sure if the opportunity comes up again, I won't make that mistake. No. If you truly want to be trusted, then you're going to offer a plan to not repeat this error. Well, it depends on what mistake you made. If the mistake was online, then you're going to say, I'm going to submit my passwords to you. Here's all my passwords. You can track me at any time, whatever. Everything's going to be visual. Or you might put a filter on your internet. If it's related to alcohol, you might say, it's all out of here. There's not going to be anything left here. Matter of fact, because I want to make sure I don't repeat this error, I'm going to put a plan in place by going to AAA. I'm going to go to that. Or whatever it might be. I'm going to get a brother or a sister that's going to call me on account and double check on me. I'm going to make sure that this does not happen again. If you want to be trusted, you're going to offer a plan. They might come back and say, well, I have a better plan. And you have to listen to that, and it might be something you have to work out together. But you're going to be willing to make a change. And then, as I said, be willing to be inspected, invited. They talk about these audits. You know, there's so much information online about making sure how to avoid an audit. Well, if you're doing everything right, it's no big deal if you get an audit. All right? So let's just make sure we're doing what the Father wants us to be doing when He returns. Invite it. Come and join me, Father. It's all good. Last one on this. Be willing to joyfully make significant sacrifice. In this story, they were willing to exchange their life or their children's lives or whatever it was. I would just say this. If you really want to regain trust, then your sacrifice also need have no bounds. What can you give? What can you give? It might cost you everything to regain that trust. It might cost you everything. But having lost it may also have cost you everything. So in Yeshua's case, He gave everything for us. And we didn't deserve that trust. I'm going to finish up with 3 statements then. How to trust Yahweh. They're just very general. But we're going to finish up with this. And I just want to pray that the Father's speaking to our hearts right now. Number 1, trust Him with our past. So we can say, the circumstances that I have endured up till now, the family I was born into, the difficulties I endured, the hardships, the pain, the suffering, the spouse you gave me, whatever it might be, that's all in the past. We need to trust him with that he will do something good with it, that he will do something amazing with it. As we talked about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they certainly didn't realize at the time that what they were going through and the stance that they took was going to be used for so much good. They were just trying to do what's right with their heart. So we have to trust the Father with our past. That also means we have to trust that he will forgive our past. Is there a sin that's so big that he can't forgive it? I know I talked about blasphemy, but in general, he will forgive us our sins if we ask him. And I would dare say, if we go back through this, regain that trust with him. We can go through all these things with the Father regarding our past. Trust him with your future. Okay, so he says that if we believe in him and his Son, if we give our life to him, if we totally trust our life to him, not trust ourselves anymore for our own salvation, but trust his salvation plan, that he has a place for us in heaven, that he has a place for us to spend eternity with him. And whether we get a crown, whatever it might be, we're going to be able to spend eternity with the Father. That's the distant future, but the more immediate future is just around the corner. Like my future spouse, like my future job, my future children, my future retirement, my future health. Am I going to trust him with all of those things? That's not necessarily easy either, but I will put it to you this way. I think the hardest thing is to trust him with our present. Because the future is just a bunch of what you do right now, all strung together. And what you do right now is the present. So will we trust him with our present? Will we trust him with today? Will we trust him with tomorrow? Will we admit that he has the ability to set up divine appointments for us? And I'm talking to this person right now, it's like, oh, was I supposed to talk to this person? Am I making the most of this opportunity? Am I just saying, hey, I just want to get out of this conversation so I can keep on going? Or am I going to make a statement that, even if it's nothing else, like, God bless when you part? Just to help them know that you are a believer and that you believe in them. If you really want to be bold, ask somebody if you can pray for them. Especially if they come to you and they're going through a hard time. Ask, can I pray for you on them? They will be moved. They will be moved. And it might open the door for a lot more conversation. Trust him with our present. In the span of time, 6,000 years, which I think is what it's going to be, the Father trusts you. He trusts you so much that he gave you a sliver in that chunk of time of all people. Because it's not an infinite number of people that will be born and live and die in that 6,000 years. It's a select number of people. He's chosen your spirit and your soul and your body and said, you are going to have an opportunity to be present. What are you going to do? Are you just going to be present here, or are you willing to make a difference? Do you want your life to matter? As Scott said earlier, here am I. Trust him with our present because he's trusting you. He's trusting you and he's given you resources. He's given you, like I said, a body. He's given you a mind. He's given you the opportunity to be here today. He's given you his word. He's given it to all of us. And he has a mission and a plan for each one of us. And I dare say, it's a test each and every day. Will we trust him with our present? And it's not easy. It's not easy. But it's easier if we confess it each and every day. In our prayers, in our worship, say, I trust you, Father. It's all about you. It's not about me. I confess I've made mistakes in the past. I will confess I probably will make mistakes in the future. Show me my error, and I will purify my heart towards you and your ways. So we're going to finish this up with a word of prayer. And as we're praying, I want you to think about if you are needing to trust the Father more concerning your past, if you're needing to trust Him more concerning your future, or if you need to trust Him more concerning your present. Is the Father speaking to you today? Is His Spirit thumping on your heart? Because He wants to communicate and speak with you, dialogue with you. At the conclusion of this prayer, if you want to make a public declaration, whether it's admitting error or admitting that you want to trust Him more in a certain area of your life, He would love that. He would love that, and we would as well. We are a family here, and we want to encourage each other to grow. So let's have a word of prayer. Father, we confess to you that we do trust you, not nearly as much as we should. Concerning our past, Father, help us to trust you with our past. Maybe we've said it, maybe we've said in our hearts, you really shortchanged me, Father. I had a raw deal. When we focus on that, forget that we're born into the wealthiest nation on the planet with health care around every corner. And all the tools and toys that people couldn't even dream of in the past. I know life is not easy. Life is hard. It's very hard. So help us to learn to trust you with our past, to trust you with our mistakes, to trust you with our hurts, to trust you with the mistakes that we've made and the repercussions of those when we see how it affects other people, to turn that over to you and let you to stop taking ownership of the future of those mistakes and yield that to you and say, Father, you are sovereign and you have a plan for everyone. And help us, Father, to trust you with our future, things that you have for us, to realize that we are so very valuable and so very loved by you, that you have given each person here gifts and tools and abilities that are unique to them, that you have a plan, that everyone here is being invited to join in and be a part of the army that follows you. We compare ourselves to others so often that we forget that we are as you intended us to be. And we dismiss the beautiful creation that you have in us. Help us to trust you with the future that you have for us. And also then for trusting you, Father, with our present. Oh, we sometimes focus so much on the past and so much on the future that we forget that the here and now is the only thing that we have full control of. It's the only thing that we can affect right now. We can't change our past. We certainly can't change our future. But the things that we do today affect our future and affects how we view our past. So help us to make the most, to be good stewards of the time that you've given us. None of us know how much time we have left. Help us to use that time wisely. Help us to be a light in the darkness. This right now is so negative. Everything is so negative in this world. Help us to be the difference. Help us to point people to you and let people know that we're serving you. To not hide it, but to let them know gladly. Oh yeah, I used to be here in this my life, and I was so unhappy. And the Father has changed me. He can change you too. He can give you hope. He can give you joy. And if I don't walk around in hope and joy, if I'm walking around defeated, help me to not focus on that. Focus on the victory that you've performed for us on the cross. So that we can walk in newness of life and walk in victory and point people to the light that you are in us. So thank you for this story of trust. Trust that was lost and trust that was regained. Help us, Father, you love us so much. You're willing to push us to a place that we're uncomfortable with, and to the point where we could fail on our own strength without you. You're willing to still call us your children and to endeavor to push us to greater heights. So thank you for that. And help us to be successful in the things that you call us to do when we trust in you. In the name of Yeshua. Amen and amen. All right. I just want to give the floor then if there's anyone that would like to share anything that was impressed on your heart today that would encourage others.
I had one comment. On your slides of things to do, number 7, I've been realizing if number 7 is on your priority list, when you wake up every single day, you'll have to do that so rarely. There's actually a YouTube channel that I watch. This guy goes around and he basically puts them on a loyalty test. You know, if it's a boyfriend and girlfriend, he'll have them switch phones and check each other's messages. And it's not that he's posting all of the interviews that he does, because I'm sure he finds the people who are, just like, yeah, there's nothing there. But he posts the ones of the guy, the girl who's like, my phone's really messed up. Like, it's like, I left it in the car, and then they have it on them because they have something to hide.
Yes.
Being willing to be inspected. Like, no, take my phone, take my computer, look at this. I want to be clean right off the get-go. Because that's putting in my conscious, I am not going to do something to put myself in a position because I don't want to lose your trust preemptively. I don't want to hold on to something that could be found out about me.
Yes.
Because if I'm doing something that could lose somebody's trust, just by doing that, I'm losing my respect of their trust because they trust me. And that means that should crush me more than anything than actually losing their trust, because if I'm already doing something that would lose their trust, I've already lost it. They just haven't found out about it yet.
Right.
So that was the thing that struck me, is that if you're already willing to be inspected, or if that's happening to you, if you're purposing out to be an open book already, you'll have to do that so much less.
Right.
I just thought that was interesting.
Yeah, very good. I know when we started hosting City on the Hill, we had our whole library and our whole movie library. It's like, if there's anything questionable in here, we better get rid of it. Because they come down the aisle and they look at all of our stuff. Oh, it's like, yeah, but you're right. So and sometimes in your homes, sometimes people invite people over and then they go and they hide all we got to get rid of this and this and this before I can have somebody here that is a believer. Well, the joy that you think that it brings you to have something or to hide something, is eroded by that knowledge that you have in your own mind that I'm not a real person. I'm putting on a front. And that erodes your joy. It does. The one thing I didn't talk about was if someone has lost trust with you, as in they've broken trust with you. You trusted them and they screwed up. On our end, what's our responsibility in terms of rebuilding trust? We can look for these things. We should look for these things that are listed here. And we shouldn't be foolish enough to just, somebody wrecks my car, here's the keys, go wreck my other one, kind of a thing. It's like, well, wait a minute here. What are you doing to improve your driving skills? That kind of a thing. It doesn't hurt to ask some of these things. There's other times that we can screw up and just not. We can always hold it over someone. Always hold it over someone. I remember back 35 years ago, you did this. Well, they've got a whole life of demonstrating trust, and you're still holding that over them? We can be wrong on the other end of that too, is what my point is.
I guess I need to trust Yahweh more with my future. Sometimes I think, well, if I have a good motivation, it still might not be good enough. However, Yahweh says to Cain in Genesis 4:6-7, so Yahweh said to Cain, why are you angry, and why is your countenance fallen? If you do well, will you not be accepted? And if you do not do well, sin lies at the door, and its desire is for you, but you should rule over it. And so, whether or not my good actions are seen by anybody else, Yahweh is the majority. That, I mean, you know, I'm in the club if I'm
Yeah.
pleasing Him.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah.
That's right. He knows your heart, and he knows if you're right. He knows if you're willing to do good. He also knows what we're capable of.
True.
He knows what we're capable of, and so he knows when, like a good father or a good employer will say, yeah, that's good work, but I know it's not your best.
Right.
The way I'm saying it.
Okay.
You know what to do. You've got a pretty good list of stuff to do. But if we practice that list, one day in your life, that incident or that problem will be an opportunity.
Yes.
It can be an opportunity. You know, we talk about trusting with our past, our present, and our future. That future, we never know how long that is.
Right.
So when we talk about the past and the present, you know, we operate in seconds or minutes. And this second, as I'm speaking to you, you know, it's not only the present in time, but it's also a present,
Oh, wow.
a physical
Yes.
present that I give to you.
That's right.
That he gives to us.
A gift, yes.
You follow what I'm saying?
Yes. The time, the moment is a gift.
Right, the moment. This moment is, it may be the last present I ever get. You know, I don't know how much future he's gonna give me. It may be the last present I ever get from him, you know? So I better make it good. I better say it well, right?
You did well. Thank you. Thank you, Gordon.
I love each and every one of you. Thank you for everything you've given and taught my wife. And I love that list. David, it's very clear cut, almost roadmap to personal responsibility, what to do. And I'm thinking as we're talking and people are sharing, and on Calvary, there were 3 crosses. One made a choice to sacrifice himself for everything, for the other 2.
Right.
One acknowledged who he was. The other one mocked. The one that acknowledged, surely this day I tell you, you will be with me in paradise. There's nothing he could do.
Right.
There's nothing he could do. And he loves us anyway.
Oh, and he had no more time.
No more time.
Yep. And he accepted responsibility.
That's it.
We're rightfully here.
That's it.
I'm rightfully here now. Yep.
Excellent sermon. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Blessing my family.
Yep. Yeah.
You know, I just have one thought. For times in my life where I've messed up and Yahweh has showed me that I had to ask for forgiveness, that very act was enough for me to never go there again.
Yeah.
Because I didn't like to have to ask
Yep.
for forgiveness or to publicly confess something.
Yep.
But when you do that, that often will be enough.
Yep.
That you'll never have to go there again. I don't know. It's just a thought.
Yeah, when I say public, I mean public, private, somebody besides yourself. Yeah. Yeah. I still remember that my dad saying this. He went to the youth Institute of Basic Youth Conference, and he came home with a button that said, he had a button that said, the Lord is not done with me yet. And so it was initials for that. And I said, what do those initials mean, Dad? He said, yeah, the Lord's not done with Marie yet, my aunt. I said, Dad, you obviously aren't getting this. But yeah, and I asked him about that because he really had a trouble with my aunt for a while, and he would say things that he shouldn't have said, and so he would eventually get to him and he would repent and he would ask her for forgiveness. So I asked him one time, I said, well, Dad, you seem to be getting along better with Marie these days. And he said, yeah, I found that was too painful to keep asking for forgiveness. So exactly what you said. That's meant to spur us on. It's meant to be painful. It's meant to change us.
Well, what it gets at is our pride.
Yeah. Yeah. Really have no reason to be proud at all. You break it all down, right? What do I deserve? I don't deserve life. Let's put it that way.